Welcome, adventurers. What's going on, guys? My name is Cody. This is Taking 20, a channel about all things role-playing games. And today, I want to talk about a rather controversial topic. I want to talk about fudging. So, to fudge or not to fudge? That really is the question. And what's interesting about this topic is that most dungeon masters can't seem to agree on what the right thing to do is. Should we fudge our rolls and lie about what results we get behind our DM screens? Or should we trust the game system and let the dice fly and let fate decide where our game goes and what happens to our PCs? So that's what I want to talk about today. I hope you guys are ready. Let's get started. Okay, before I just jump right in and talk about whether we should fudge or not, I think we should all define kind of what constitutes fudging. Obviously, we all agree that rolling a die behind your Dungeon Master screen and just choosing a different result, that's fudging. But let me ask you this. What about changing a DC after you've mentally set it? Or secretly lowering your monster's armor class so that your players can actually deal damage to the creature? Or what if your players deal a lot of damage to a creature, leaving it with only a few hit points left, but you let them finish it off anyways? See, I think it's really important for Dungeon Masters to realize that all of these things are also considered fudging. And the reason is because I think it puts us in the right frame of mind when it comes to deciding whether we should fudge or not. If it's okay as a Dungeon Master to lower a difficulty check, or lower a creature's armor class, or let the players finish off a monster, because that's what's the most fun for the game, or because that's what's best for the game, then why would it be any different to roll the die behind the screen, realize the result's not going to be a lot of fun, and then decide to do something that would be more fun? Okay, now hold on. Before you just accuse me of 100% being in favor of fudging, I also understand very well the point of view from dungeon masters and players that don't want to fudge, that think that fudging takes away from the game, it takes away from player agency. And in fact, I would even tend to agree with that. So, should we fudge or not? If you're asking in a black-white manner of should I fudge at the table or not, I think the answer is yes. Yes, you should. But we as Dungeon Masters have to be very careful on when and how we actually fudge in our games. So how exactly and when exactly are we supposed to fudge? Well, the answer is simple. When it adds to the game. It's really that simple. When fudging a die roll, an armor class, or even remaining hit points on a monster would add to your game, then do it. Okay, let me give you a nice, clean, crisp example of how fudging can add to your game. Let's take a group of adventurers. They are traveling through a dungeon and they come to a room that is guarded by two bugbears. The rogue player decides to sneak ahead and try to eliminate one or both of them quietly. The rest of the party waits anxiously around the corner with their weapons drawn, ready to rush into combat. Now, these players are thinking critically and working as a team. So the rogue player stealths up and he springs his attack on one of the guards, trying to take him down stealthily. So at this point as Dungeon Masters, we have three options when the rogue makes his attack. The first option is to just let him succeed. No roll necessary. It's a well thought out plan, no problem. He eliminates at least one of the guards, as long as he passes his stealth checks and he attacks basically unseen. Option 2 is to simply let fate decide. Let the player sneak up on the bugbear and make his attack. He gets to roll a bunch of dice, which can be a lot of fun, and we're going to just let fate decide. We're going to take whatever the dice roll is, as is. We're not going to fudge at all. Now, option 3 is the one that I would propose. Now, before I get into details on exactly what's happened, let's take a look at the first two. With option 1, the player sneaks up, he takes out the guard, and he has executed a well thought out plan. The player feels pretty rewarded for outthinking a challenge. This is a totally acceptable option. Now, option 2 where the player sneaks up and makes his attack, he rolls really, really high, and everybody at the table gets excited about the dice roll. They get excited that the plan not only worked, just like with option 1, but they also get the added excitement of the anticipation, waiting for the results of how much damage and if it was successful. But after the results are rolled, you realize as a dungeon master that it leaves the guard with a few hit points remaining. So now everybody rolls initiative and combat begins. Now option 3 is the one that I would go with, which is to let the player stealth up just like in the first 2 options and let him be rewarded for his critical thinking. Like option 2, I'm going to let the player roll his attack. Everybody at the table still gets all of the excitement from both having their plan come to fruition and the anticipation of not knowing what the result is. The only difference is that when I see that the guard still has just a few hit points left, I decide to just let the player kill them anyways. Now with this option, everything comes together in a nice, neat bow. The player still feels rewarded for having their plan come to fruition. The table still feels the excitement of waiting to see what the results is of the dice. Because I didn't just let the players kill the guard, and I waited to see what the result was before I made a ruling. Because if my player's roll had been lower on his damage output, then I would have had my players roll initiative. Again, they would have still felt rewarded because they were starting combat against an injured opponent. But on the other hand, having them roll initiative to engage in a combat with a guard with only a few hit points left, odds are that's not going to be a lot of fun. That is not going to add to the game. And this concept can be applied to everything. You as a dungeon master or game master can still have control over what happens in your game while still letting dice decide what happens and letting your players feel that joy, feel that excitement of rolling dice and seeing a bunch of really big numbers and getting excited as a group over the possible result. Now, before you just go off and start fudging all the time, I want to caution you about overdoing it. It is an easy trap for dungeon masters and game masters to fall into to fudge too often. There may be nothing worse that could happen at your game table. Well, probably some things worse, but not many things worse than having a dungeon master that fudges so often that their players can tell. So use fudging with caution. Whatever you think the correct amount is, reel it back just a little. Let the dice decide just one more thing tonight. Let the dice decide where the game goes when you can. But if you have an opportunity to fudge and it will add to your game, then by all means, go for it. After all, why would they have a Dungeon Master screen if you weren't allowed to fudge your rolls? Now, you don't have to take my word for it. As Gary Gygax once famously said, a DM only rolls the dice because of the noise they make. If this is your first time here and you love role-playing games as much as I do, I'd love to have you subscribe. I'll be putting out new videos every week on DM tips, player tips, tutorials, and more. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, just hit that subscribe button down below and come join us. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Cody, and may your games be filled with awesome memories and even better friends. I'll catch you guys next time.